everybody. Welcome to the Hallmarkies podcast. I'm really excited today to bring you a very special interview with director Lydia Dean Pilcher. And Lydia is the director of a new film called A Call to Spy. This film is available on VOD and in the theaters. And I had the chance to just talk to her for a few minutes. So it's not a very long interview compared to what we normally have, but this is still really interesting. And I'll give some of my thoughts on the film after the interview is finished. So if you get to see this film, let me know what you think, and let's go and check out the interview. Thank you so much, Lydia, for coming on the podcast. I'd like to ask our guests to introduce yourselves and tell us how did you become a director?
Well, I'm Lydia Dean Pilcher. I have spent most of my career as a producer, over 30 years, in fact, and I have directed some documentaries and directed second unit on a lot of the movies I produce, but I've been solely directing the last couple of years. And when Sarah Megan Thomas, who wrote the screenplay, brought it to me, I was completely, taken with these three women who were, from different countries, Romania, India, America, working on a common mission to defeat Hitler in France, and just their power, their sort of fearlessness really captivated me.
Yeah, it's a really unique film, I feel like, especially for one of the things I wanted to ask you is how were you able to get so much with such a small budget? I mean, there's so many facets to it, with the period piece, with the large cast, with telling three different stories, all the different stuff. How were you able to manage all of that?
Yes, we are an independent film, and I have produced many period historical films in my career. So it was a challenge that I, was excited to take on. And the part that was really in need of the most sort of brilliant, clever, configuring was the period France exteriors. Mm. And for those scenes, we went to Budapest, which is an amazing place to film. And the crews were fantastic. So we did a lot of the filming in Budapest, but we also did film in Philadelphia.
Mm. Oh, interesting. Philadelphia, huh? Yeah, that's interesting. So, and all of your costuming and all of that, how was it putting all of that together?
Well, it was fun because it was fascinating and exciting to do all of the research into World War II. I mean, as movie makers, we go deep into these subjects for the purpose of creating a world on screen and making that world as authentic as we can. So there was obviously a lot for us to learn. For myself, the production designer, Kim Jennings, the costume designer, Vanessa Porter, we really did our research to understand what it was like to, take a wireless radio into, Nazi France. I mean, the life expectancy for a wireless operator was 6 weeks. And it was because the signal is going right up. And, whether you're in a city, in a building somewhere, or you're out in the country, I mean, there are intelligence forces out there that can just track the signals. And so the operators in our movie, played by Radhika Apte as Noor Inayat Khan, I mean, she had to be constantly on the move, constantly in hiding. She couldn't stay in the same place. And yeah.
Yeah. Do you know how Sarah decided on these particular three women and their stories out of all the different spies to pick these three?
Well, I think she was, drawn to the character of Virginia Hall for herself to play. I mean, Virginia is the American. She had wanted to work in the Foreign Service for a long time. And, all three women have had books written about them. They're all true stories. So, but I think Sarah started with Virginia's story, and then she was very interested in Vera Atkins' story, who was the woman who actually was employed by the British government to find these women and train them to go out on the ground, and had escaped anti-Semitism in Romania herself. So her story was very full and vital. And then from there, I think Sarah wanted to include one more story that could be part of what was happening on the ground during the war. And Noor Inayat Khan is a very, very interesting character. She's an Indian of Muslim heritage, but her mother was American. She grew up in France, so she was very fluent in the language. And she had moved to England and had become a member of the Women's Auxiliary Air Force. So she had some training, but it was all in this time when the war was happening and everybody in Europe had to find their place in the war and what they would do.
Yeah, I really thought her character was interesting, and uh, especially the just her being sort of fighting. It's always interesting when you have people sort of fighting for a country that's not even fully accepting of who they are to begin with. Yeah, they're still fighting for it.
Mm-hmm.
I thought that was interesting. How did you end up doing the casting for Radhika and for Stana, for those two other leads?
Sure, sure. Well, I actually work quite a bit internationally, and I've worked quite a bit in India, but I was on the jury of Tribeca Film Festival one year, and we gave Radhika Apte Best Actress for one of her international films that was directed by Anurag Kashyap. And I remembered her from that, and just and since that time, because of all my work in India, she's quite a big star in India. She's very well known, and so I was thrilled when we reached out to her and she agreed to come on board and play Noor. And for Stana, our casting director is Heidi Levitt, and Heidi had a casting associate in London who had been involved with the casting of Absentia, which is the Amazon series that is in its third series now with Stana. A lot of people know Stana from ABC's Castle series. But we were also thrilled when Stana agreed to come on board. I mean, she was the perfect person to play Vera Atkins, who was kind of this strategic mind, really embodied in sort of a warrior mentality.
Yeah, I mean, I know this is probably Sarah's screenplay, but it's always hard when you're adapting real life events of how sort of cinematic to make it versus the true events. And was that something that you kind of struggled with at all, or did you feel like the script was pretty solid in that regard?
Well, I think that we developed a lot of character details and nuances in the course of preparing for the film, and I did a lot of research in the Imperial War Museum archives in London. I went to a resistance museum in Lyon, France, and really just dove into what all the stories. I mean, it's an amazing. I mean, you could just read for the rest of your life these stories because they go so far and wide and so many different people, and the international fabric of World War II is so culturally rich and diverse. But we tried. Our goal was to be as authentic as possible.
Mm-hmm.
And to really amplify the elements of these women's stories that really drove them.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I was just amazed watching. I'm like, how is it? I've seen so many movies about World War II, and it's just like, how is it I've never heard of any of these people? I mean, I think it's kind of incredible that I know we're still not hearing these stories. They're not part of our history lessons growing up.
Rachel, there's
Yeah.
so many stories that we haven't heard. I think that for a long time we had been living in a sort of an industry and a world where female audiences weren't valued, and so female stories weren't as valued. And now there is a real understanding that the female market is huge, that women are 51% of the audience, and when you go to digital platforms, it's even a higher percentage. So I think that sometimes it takes a long time for the narratives to change and businesses, but I think we're there.
Yeah, because they felt that same way about Hidden Figures. It was like, how many movies have I seen about the space race? How have I never heard of these people? I need to do better about learning about these amazing women. But it's just I'm glad that we're telling their stories. That makes me happy.
Yeah.
So, what is something that you hope people take away from this film?
Well, I think that the struggle, the struggle in the film is really around something that was happening in the war at that time, in which there were, people that were placing different values on human lives and valuing human lives in different ways for different reasons. And I think that that's something that is an idea and an issue that we could be talking about more today, and the pitfalls of that. Um, we learn a lot from history, because when you look back at history, there's a beginning and an end to a story. And it's interesting, I think, to re-experience these stories and try to ask ourselves, what can we learn?
Mm-hmm. Do you think that each of the three women have something a little bit different to teach us?
I do. I think that they, even though they were driven by the same, in the same mission, they all had different motivations for what they were doing. And I think that, but I think that they all were really interested in, there was a moral imperative. They really did have a sense of purpose. And even though they may have been doing different things in the world, if there was no war, the war really made them feel that this was the most important thing to be focused on. And that sense of purpose, that sense of what is it that brings meaning to my life, and what gifts do I have to elevate, to make the world a better place. I think all of those things are very valid. Very
Yeah,
valid.
I think so too. This movie is coming out in this time of quarantine, this time of craziness with COVID-19. Do you think that it is relevant to kind of this moment in time that we're at now?
I think it's more relevant than ever.
Yeah.
And I think the pandemic has given us, I mean, it's taken away so much from us, but the solitary kind of this time where we really have a lot of space to think about what we're doing and what does really matter to us, and what, in our ideal world, how should we be spending the time in our lives. I think it's given us that time to really think, and we all have choices to make. So hopefully the movie can inspire us to really take that on a higher ground level.
Yeah, it certainly is. It certainly has something to say about what we do with the time that we have, making a difference in the world where they could have just stayed. There was no requirement for them to go and do what they did, but they pushed themselves beyond beyond what they had to do, and so that's, I think, makes it especially admirable. And we have a world that there's lots of negative influences right now, and are we going to stand up, or are we going to just are we not going to? Are we just going to stay at home? I don't know. So it's an interesting thing.
Yeah.
The last question I'll ask is so you have a character that has a wooden leg, with Virginia Hall, and so how did you sort of make that a reality as far as the performance and everything like that?
Well, first of all, we worked with a nonprofit organization called Respect Ability, because we
Mm-hmm.
wanted to make sure that we were really portraying a person with a disability in a way that was respectful of everyone who was in the forefront of people with disabilities and their rights. So that was very helpful. And, it was a process that Sarah and I, as the director and working with her as the actress, it was a process that we undertook together to sort of, with our research again, and talking to other amputees about the emotional reality of their experience, what it was like to deal with. I mean, honestly, the prosthesis that she had, is so primitive to what people can have today, that the idea of Virginia Hall climbing over the Pyrenees with that wooden leg is almost, it's just unbelievable.
Yeah.
It's almost inconceivable. And the fact that she did it, and knowing that, how much pain was involved at all moments, it was quite something. I mean, there was a detail that we didn't include in the film, but I always loved it. It was that Vera Atkins had to write to Virginia's mother in Baltimore for spare parts for the brace on the wooden leg. I mean, it
Uh-huh.
was literally like, nothing was going to hold this woman back.
Yeah, that's great. So if people want to see the film, how can they see it right now?
Well, there is a website for IFC Films that is a call-to-spy-movie.com, and it has all the play dates in all regions across the country. And it is also on VOD. And I think if someone goes online and Googles, you'll see exactly how it's available everywhere. So if you Google it, and you'll see where to find it in your area.
Well, congratulations on the film. I really enjoyed it. I really felt like I learned a lot. And so thanks so much for talking with us, and congratulations on the film.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
We'd like to take a second and thank our sponsor for this episode of the podcast. They are the good folks over at Care Of, and Care Of delivers high quality products in a personalized way. And they start out with their great online quiz. And this online quiz is 5 minutes. It asks you questions about your diet, your lifestyle, your health concerns to help address your specific wellness goals. They have a holistic approach to vitamins and health. And it's like getting a one-on-one consultation with a nutritionist, all without leaving your home. I know when I took the quiz, we were able to narrow down to the most important thing for me is working on my sleep and be able to take some vitamins and the dream sticks that they have to help with my sleep. And so you'll be able to do the same thing and figure out what is the most important for you with your wellness. This is fall's happening all around us. And right now we want to fall into a healthy routine. As the seasons change, it is important to get ahead of taking care of your immune health. It takes about 30 days for your body to adapt to new nutrients. So now is a great time to update your vitamin and wellness routines to help support your immune system this fall. And Care Of's products go beyond vitamins and supplements to include protein powders and boosts to help supplement your workouts as you move indoors in the colder months. So you can go on their website and take the quiz and have high quality products that are designed for you. They even have your name on it, on the packaging, on the little packets that you take the vitamins. They're easy to use. And for 50% off your first Care Of order, go to takecareof.com, enter code Hallmarkies50. That's takecareof.com, code Hallmarkies50. I'd like to thank Lydia for coming on the podcast. I love getting a chance to interview directors, especially female filmmakers. And I think it is such an incredible role, such an incredible job, such a great example of leadership that we need to see, and it's very inspiring. I think it's really cool what they were able to do with a pretty small budget as far as this film. I had never heard of any of these women before, so it was a really great opportunity for me to get to learn more about these women and the sacrifices that they made. And there are some things that are tough to watch. It's PG-13, but I'd say it's a pretty strong PG-13. So I wouldn't, like watch it with small children. Not that you would for PG-13, but I would use caution. There's torture, there's some other things, but I think for mature teens and for adults, it's a good opportunity to get to learn about 3 dynamic, important women that I had never heard of before. And I think that's really great. I think the acting is all really good. I particularly liked Radhika Apte as Noor. I thought that she did a really good job. I could have even used more of her. The story, you definitely get the most Virginia Hall out of the 3 women, but I thought all 3 were very, very interesting. And I think that you have a pretty sinister villain in Klaus Barbie is the Nazi. He's played by Mark Reisman, and he's very sinister. And I think they did a good job. I liked the music. I liked the cinematography. All of the period details were all really well done. It definitely is a tense movie. It's a war movie. So if you are, looking for a fluffy movie, this is not it. This is a tense movie about women that are putting themselves on the line, their lives on the line, and they didn't have to. They could have stayed at home, and so I really admire them, and I loved getting to hear about their story, getting to see their story, and so I think that they did a good job. Like I said, all the acting, the everything else about the movie was very enjoyable. I think it maybe is a little bit too long in spots, but you're telling three people's stories, so that's challenging. So there we go. That's my thoughts on A Call to Spy. If you feel up to going to the theaters, if you feel safe, then I would recommend going to see it. If you get it on VOD, I think you'd still enjoy it. So let me know if you get a chance to see this one, what you think. I would love to hear your thoughts, and make sure that you are subscribed to the Hallmarkies podcast on YouTube. Please like this video if you're watching it. And if you are listening on iTunes, please leave your ratings and reviews. That helps us so much. We're getting into the Christmas season already. This week is the official start, which is very exciting, if you can believe it. But we definitely could use those reviews so that people can find our content. We also have our patron group, which we're going to be having watch alongs with behind the scenes details. We're going to be having early reviews, early exclusives. We have our Facebook group that you can talk about all the different things that you're watching and seeing. It's really great. And it's only $2 a month to start out and support the podcast. We also have our merch store, which is really fun. It has tons of festive designs. So make sure to check that out. You can find me at Rachel's Reviews, all over social media, iTunes, YouTube, and on Rotten Tomatoes. So please check that out. I have my full written review of A Call to Spy with more details. So I'll put that in the description section. Check that out, please. But thanks so much, and we'll talk to you all later. Bye, everyone.